Why in the world did I not know this sooner? That's what I've been asking myself so many times over the years of my woodworking journey. So in today's video, I'm going to tell you about my top 10 things that I wish I knew before I started woodworking. Whether you are just getting started with woodworking as a hobby, or maybe you've been woodworking for years, I promise you will learn something new in this video. So let's get started. Number one, you don't need a shop to get started with woodworking. I hope you never watch one of my videos and see the shop that I'm in, which I'm super blessed to have this space to woodwork in, but never see this whole shop setup that I have and think I need every bit of tools and supplies, and I need a space that big to do woodworking, because that is not true. In fact, you can start woodworking without even having a woodworking shop. I've made entire woodworking projects completely outside, and I use things like extension cords, air compressors, a Bora Centipede workstation, which I'll leave all links to all those things down in the description. But I've made entire woodworking projects outside without using my woodworking shop space. Whether you are building cornhole boards, outdoor furniture, birdhouses, lots of things, you can really build some amazing woodworking projects outside without a woodworking shop. Number two, you don't need expensive woodworking tools to get started with woodworking. Now, in my shop, I have lots of tools that cost a good bit of money. But when I first got started with woodworking, I didn't have any of these tools. If you're just getting started with woodworking, maybe you haven't even built your first project and you don't know if you really love woodworking, it's okay to buy a few cheap tools and try out a few projects, see if you like it. And then if you decide, hey, woodworking's for me, I want to invest a lot more time and money into this hobby, or maybe you're doing this as a side hustle or a business, then invest in some more expensive tools. They're definitely worth it, and I'll talk more about that in a second, but it's okay to start with some budget-friendly tools. My favorite brand when it comes to budget-friendly tools is Ryobi. Now, I know there'll probably be some people in the comments of this video saying, Ryobi's not a professional grade brand, and it's not fine woodworking, and I don't use Ryobi tools very much, and I'm not even saying that they're the most quality tools, but what I am saying is they are budget-friendly tools and they can get the job done for many woodworking projects. In the description of this video, I'll leave a list of links to kind of a starter kit of some pretty good quality but budget-friendly tools and kind of the basic tools that you need to get started with woodworking. So check out the link in the description for that. Number three, third thing I learned in my woodworking journey that I wish I knew sooner, a table saw is the most important tool in your shop. Now, ironically, the table saw in my shop was one of the last tools that I purchased. But truly, a table saw is the heart of the woodworking shop. You can make almost any type of cut on a table saw that a miter saw could make, that a lot of cuts that a bandsaw can make. You can make cross cuts, you can make rip cuts, you can even make curve cuts, or I guess it's called a cone. Cone? It's where you like cut out kind of a semicircle into a board. You can do that on a table saw. So for those reasons, I would highly recommend investing in a table saw toward the beginning of your woodworking journey. I remember when I was first getting started with woodworking, I would look on YouTube on project ideas. I was trying to get ideas on things I could build to make money. And almost every single project, someone said, all right, now it's time to go over to our table saw. And I was like, oh no, I don't have a table saw. I just finally bit the bullet and bought not this table saw, but a cheaper one at first. And that was the heart of my woodworking shop. Now this SawStop table saw is the heart of my woodworking shop. And so if you decide I'm gonna get serious about woodworking and you have not invested in a table saw, invest in a table saw. You will not regret it. I'll leave some links in the description to kind of like a beginner, intermediate, advanced options of table saws that I think would be high quality or that I've used in the past. But yeah, the table saw, it is essential if you're going to be in woodworking. Also, quick disclaimer before we move on to number four. In the description, I'll leave a link to a video where I talk about some table saw upgrades that I have made that have been game changers for me. So if you're interested in that, check out the link in the description. Fourth thing I wish I knew sooner, pocket holes make life so much easier. Now, there are some people who hate on pocket hole joinery, but I'm a huge fan of pocket hole joinery. And here's the reason why. It makes joining boards so much quicker and faster. And if you're getting started in woodworking or even an intermediate woodworker, there's nothing wrong with sometimes just getting a job done quickly. And pocket hole joinery will allow you to do just that. What a pocket hole jig is, if you don't know, is it basically allows you to join two boards together at a right angle using toenail screws or screws that are going in at an angle. And it helps you do this in a very quick and efficient way. I have the Craig 720 Pro pocket hole jig and I love it. I also have a few of Craig's smaller, more mobile pocket hole jigs that have also been great. I'll leave links to all those in the description. But pocket hole joinery is a must, in my opinion, for beginner to intermediate woodworkers. There are a lot of people who say that's not true woodworking. That's kind of a cheat code. You need to be doing dovetail joinery or mortar and tennyson joinery, like all this stuff. What I would say to that is you have to start somewhere. And most of those woodworkers probably did not on their first woodworking project use dovetail inlay joinery. Like they probably started with something much more simple. And so don't let someone hate on a pocket hole jig. You're still taking some lumber and creating something for someone to use or for you to sell. Like don't let people discredit that just because of the type of joinery that you used. And so once again, I'm a huge fan of pocket hole jigs. Craig is the company that I always recommend because, in my opinion, they make the best, most high quality pocket hole jigs. Another great thing about Craig, by the way, is on their website. I'll leave a link to it in the description. They have a ton of free project plans, anything from outdoor furniture to woodworking jigs for the shop and storage cabinets for your shop. I mean, there are a ton of high quality free plans that are really easy to follow. I've used a lot of their plans before. So I'll leave a link to that if you want to check it out. Links in the description. I wish I knew about it sooner. Number 5, what I wish I knew sooner, nice tools make a huge difference. Now, I'm not trying to contradict myself earlier. If you're getting started with woodworking, I think that starting with some budget-friendly tools is perfectly acceptable. I think that's great. However, when you buy a high-quality tool, in most cases, you do get what you pay for. I really noticed this when I bought this SawStop table saw. And when I ran my first, I still remember it. I mean, very vividly. I was running like a piece of maple through the table saw. I think I was making a cutting board, actually, a long grain cutting board. And I was just blown away by how smooth the cut was, how accurate the cut was, honestly, how much safer I felt because the table saw wasn't like rattling around, you know, it just made a huge difference. I've also felt that with my dust collector. I have a Powermatic dust collector, and it's just so much nicer than trying to collect dust with using like the shop vac and then the tornado dust separator. Like it's just, you know, nice tools make a huge difference. And so don't let that discourage you from getting started in woodworking if you don't have all of the nice tools, but it might be an encouragement to you to, you know, eventually start buying nicer tools at some point. Number 6, having a clean shop or workspace is huge. Now, to be perfectly honest, I am not doing the best job at having my shop as clean as I would like it to be. There are definitely corners of my shop that have clutter collecting in them, and really I need to get my shop more organized. One of these days, I'm going to do a deep clean in my shop. However, if you have a clean, organized shop and you know where your supplies are, where your tools are, every tool has a specific home, that is huge for woodworking. One, it's going to eliminate the need for you to walk around and be like, where did I put that specific drill bit? Or where did I put the 220 grit sandpaper? I remember a few weeks ago, I was looking for a impact driver head and I could not find it. I probably spent 20 minutes looking for it. I got so frustrated, I ordered it on Amazon. And then 2 days later, I found the bit when the Amazon package showed up. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is so frustrating. So having a clean, organized shop is hugely underrated. It's also safer. I've done woodworking projects where I've literally been tripping over stuff, tripping over tools on the floor that I've just left lying out. If you take the time to organize your shop and then keep it organized, you'll have a much more safe, enjoyable woodworking experience. I'm a huge believer that your workspace or shop, it should inspire creativity for you. And that can mean different things for different people. Maybe you work in a garage and so you want to lean into like that garage feel. Maybe you want to lean into more of a rustic woodworking shop feel. But I'm a huge believer that your woodworking shop should inspire creativity for you. And so spend time working on keeping an organized, clean, creative space. It'll make woodworking so much more fun. Number 7, don't be woodworking when you are hungry or tired. This might sound strange, but this is one of the biggest mistakes I think I have made in my woodworking journey. Is I'll be working on a project and sometimes I'll get really bogged down on a certain project, and I've spent 4, 5, 6 consecutive hours working on something. I'm getting tired, getting frustrated, I'm hungry, and I won't just take time to step away and let the project breathe and let myself breathe, really. And because of this, I have made so many mistakes. I mean, I have mismeasured lumber and wasted tons of lumber. I've poured epoxy into tabletops that weren't correctly sealed and had major epoxy leaks because I was just ready to get something done. If you're in a hurry or if you're tired or if you're hungry, just take time, step away from your woodworking project. It will still be there when you come back. It will help you do higher quality work, and it will also just be more enjoyable for you. Trust me, I've made that mistake many times, but I wish someone had told me sooner. Just don't work in the shop if you're hungry or tired. Number 8, sanding takes longer than you think. When I first started woodworking, I thought that most of woodworking was cutting pieces and fitting them together, and then you just take 5 minutes and kind of sand out a project to make sure it felt good at the end. That, sadly, is not the case. I spend sometimes half of my days in the woodworking shop doing some kind of sanding or another, and I don't like sanding. I kind of invest a lot of money in sanding, in sandpaper and sanders so that I can spend less time sanding, but a huge part of woodworking is sanding. Here are a few tips, however, to help you in your sanding journey. A couple of tips that I found helpful. Number 1, you've got to be following the 50% rule. And what the 50% rule says is that when you are working your way up in sandpaper grit, let's say 80, 120, 180, 220, whatever, you never want to increase the grit number by more than 50%. And that will make sure that you don't have those fish eye that look so terrible in a project, and they're really tough to get out without just sanding the whole project over again. So 50% rule, abide by it. Second tip for sanding is buy good sandpaper. Don't try to buy the cheap sandpaper. It's cheap for a reason. And so if you invest in high quality sandpaper, it will save you some time with sanding. Third tip for sanding is invest a couple of dollars in a sandpaper eraser. What this does is it makes your sandpaper almost have 2 times or 3 times the life. We've probably all seen a disc of sandpaper that is caked up with sawdust and it's just not cutting through the wood effectively because it's got all this sawdust caked up on it. What this does is you can run it over your sander and it erases all of that caked up sandpaper. Works very, very well. Of course, there's a link to this in the description. You can go check it out. And I think it's like $7 or $8, not super expensive. So a great investment to make. Number 9, most woodworking injuries go unnoticed. When I was getting started woodworking, I thought about woodworking injuries and I was thinking about people who would cut off their fingers or, cut their arm on a saw blade or something like that, or with a router bit. And of course, those are serious injuries and you want to make sure you're working safely around any kind of saw or router because those are very serious injuries. But most woodworking injuries happen in a way that you don't even know. And here's what I mean. First, tons of woodworkers do not wear proper hearing protection. And I'm super passionate about this because my dad used to run a lot of equipment without wearing hearing protection. And now he has constant ringing in his ears. And it's all the time. It sounds like a fire alarm going off in his ears. And that's because he was not wearing correct hearing protection. What you don't want to do is be woodworking for a few years and then realize that you have caused permanent damage to your hearing. And so invest a couple of bucks into some good hearing protection. I'll leave links to some of my favorite hearing protection down in the description. I promise you will not regret it. The second type of woodworking injury that usually goes unnoticed is when people do not wear proper lung protection. There are tons of substances in woodworking that you can be exposed to that are toxic. Epoxy dust, it's toxic. Black walnut sawdust is actually toxic. You don't want to be breathing in black walnut sawdust. And so anytime you're cutting black walnut or cutting epoxy that's cured or sanding those things, you want to be wearing a good respirator. I'll leave a link to a respirator down in the description that I use in my shop, but you don't want to get this junk stuck in your lungs and then you have lung damage down the road as well because of your time woodworking. And so please invest in those safety tools. I know it's not like the fun or sexy side of woodworking, but it's worth it. It's worth it, y'all. Number 10, something I wish I knew sooner about woodworking, is that it's best to master one skill at a time. When I was getting started woodworking, I would see people on YouTube who were doing super cool projects. Maybe it was like epoxy river tables, or people who were doing really complex joinery. And I was like, I want to try that. And so I would take on projects that were way beyond my current skill level. What I would recommend is find a project that just has a little bit of a challenge for you. It's not going to be so hard that you get discouraged and give up. It's just going to be something that you're like, hey, I've done most of these things, but I've never tried using a pocket hole joint. And so I'm going to try that. Or I've never tried working with epoxy, so I'm going to try that. If you master one skill at a time, you'll actually master skills more quickly than if you try to do, something super advanced and complicated, get discouraged and burn out. It's kind of that concept of just manageable difficulty. You want to find something that's, just a little bit beyond your current skill set, and then try that and then move on to the next project. So those are probably my top 10 right now things that I wish I knew before getting started in woodworking. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. And if you've learned something from this video, please hit the like button. It means the world to me. It's just super, super helpful. If you liked this video, check out one of these two videos. I promise you will like them as well. So I'll see you in one of these videos.